नाम संकीर्तन परंपरा श्रीमद् भागवतम की है। स्वामी जी की संस्थापक आचार्य श्री प्रभुपाद की है। गौ प्रेमानंद all glories, some of glories, all glories, Sri Guru and Prabhu. ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
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 नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवति उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। कृष्णे स्वधामोपगते धर्मज्ञानादिभिः सह कलौ नष्टदृशामेष पुराणार्को धुनोदितः। Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 63, Text number 26. Kala Devam Karma Jiva Swabhava Dravyam Kshetram Prana Atma Vikara Tatsanghatah Bijaroha Pravaha Tvanmaya Esha Tannishetham Prapadye Kalo Daivam Karnamajiva Swabhavo Dravyam Kshetram Prana Atma Vikaraha Tatsanghato Bijaroha Pravahas Tvanmaya Isha Tannishetham Prapadye Kalo Daivam Karma Jiva Swabhavo Dravyam Kshetram Prana Atma Vikaraha Tatsanghato Bijaroha Pravahas Tvanmaya Isha Tannishetham Prapadye Kalo Daivam Karma Jiva Swabhavo Dravyam Kshetram Prana Atma Vikaraha Tatsanghato Bijaroha Pravahas Tvanmaya Isha Tannishetham Prapadye Kalo Daivam Karma Jiva Swabhavo Dravyam Kshetram Prana Atma Vikaraha Bijaroha Pravahas Tvanmaya Isha Tannishetham Prapadye. Ladies. Kalo Daivam Karma Jiva Swabhavo Dravyam Kshetram Prana Atma Vikaraha Tatsanghato bijaroha pravahas tanmayaisha tan nishedham prapadye kalaha time daivam destiny karma the reactions of material work jivaha the individual living entity swabhava his propensities dravyam the subtle forms of matter kshetram the body pranam the life air atma the false ego vikara the transformations of the 11 senses tat of all this sanghata the aggregate as the subtle body bija the seed roha and sprout pravaha the constant flow tvat your maya material illusory energy Isha this tat of it nishetam the negation you prapadye I am approaching for shelter. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Time, fate, karma, the jiva and his propensities, the subtle material elements, the material body, the life air, false ego, the various senses, and the totality of these as reflected in the living being's subtle body. All these constitute your material illusory energy, Maya, an endless cycle like that of seed and plant. I take shelter of you, the negation of this Maya. Please repeat. Time, fate, karma, the jiva, and his propensities. The subtle material elements, the material body, life air, false ego, the various senses, and the totality of these as reflected in the living being's subtle body. All these constitute your material illusory energy. Maya, an endless cycle like that of seed and plant. I take shelter of you, the negation of this Maya, for by the servants of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. The word bija roha pravaha is explained as follows. The conditioned soul accepts the material body with which he attempts to enjoy the material world. That body is the seed or bija of future material existence, because when a person acts with that body, he creates further reactions, karma, which grow, roha, into the obligation to accept another material body. In other words, material life is like a chain of actions and reactions. The simple decision to surrender to the Supreme Lord releases the conditioned soul from this futile repetition of material growth and reaction. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, the words Tannishedham Prapadye indicate that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, is Nishedhavati Bhutam, the limit of negation. In other words, after all illusion is negated, the absolute truth remains. The process of education may be succinctly described as a way of eradicating ignorance through the attainment of knowledge. Through inductive, deductive, and intuitive means, we attempt to refute the specious, the illusory, and the imperfect, and elevate ourselves to a platform of full knowledge. Ultimately, when all illusion is negated, that which remains firmly in place is the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the previous text, the Shiva Dwara described the Supreme Lord as Sarvatmanam Kevalam Yapti Matram, pure, concentrated spiritual consciousness. Now, the Shiva Dwara concludes his philosophical description of the Lord by saying in this text that the various aspects of material existence are also potencies of the Supreme Lord. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti explains that although the jiva is different from Maya, here it is included among the constituents of Maya because it is controlled by Maya. Vishwanath Chakravarti also mentions that the Supreme Lord's own body and senses, as implied here by the word tannishetham, are non-different from the Lord's pure spiritual existence. The Lord's body and senses are not external to him, nor do they cover him, but rather the Lord is identical with his spiritual form and senses. The full absolute truth, unlimited and fascinating diversity, is Lord Sri Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadandikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yutaparikamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Ladata Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanjana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanustate Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Madhgavirapi Gopala Svikuriat Kripaya Yadi Tadaiva Sampaya Pitva Hrishi Ustat Priyajanaha Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur prays, my dear Lord Gopal, only if you give my words potency, they will become sweet milk and give pleasure to your pure devotees. In this verse, he is praising the Lord, distinguishing the Lord from all others as pure consciousness. And then this is Sridhar Swami speaking. He's paraphrasing the Shiva Dwara quote. We exercise influence over a specific thing, but because you're beyond all of our excellences, unlike anyone else's controllership, you alone are the Lord of all. Kala here means the agitator, Shobhaka, gets things moving. Karma or action is the instrumental cause, nimittam, of our material entanglement. Its manifest fruition alone is daivam, fate, or destiny is translated here. Swabhava means one's natural inclination, sanskara. The jiva, or living being, knows this. Dravya refers to the material elements. The field, or kshetram, means the material body. Life air, prana, is the sutram, the thread holding everything together. Atma means the false ego. Vikara refers to the 11 senses. Adding the 5 elements makes them 16. Their aggregate, sankhata, forms the subtle body, or the linga. Its constant flow, pravaha, is like the perpetual seeding and fructifying of action and reaction. Performing actions plants the seeds of yet another material body, which is its fruition. This is your illusory material energy. But you check this process, being the ultimate negation, and we take shelter of you. Sridhar Swami's sub-commentator Vanshitara explains that he says, moreover, he meaning Sridhar Swami, expressing his lack of capability in regards to the Lord, he says, moreover, kimcha, what's more? There is a specific thing, and kintu indicates contrast. Tadeva means karma only. Tat sanskara means the impression of karma. Tadvan means one who knows the karmic impressions, then activities following from the body. Although the living entity is different from Maya because of being controlled by Maya, he's identified with it. But the Lord negates that Maya, which means that he's not illusory. Jiva Goswami explains that after offering respects in order to surrender into the Lord here, the Shiva Dwara is describing the Lord as the shelter of everything and and as uncontaminated by the faults of matter because he's pure consciousness, etc. As this previous verse had described that already. So after describing the Lord in this way, he surrenders. Kshetram can mean prakriti, nature, or it can mean the body. We know from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says the latter, idam shariram kauntaya kshetram ityabhidiyate, that this material body is the kshetra. And he explains it further in text 6 and 7 of that chapter, chapter 13 of Bhagavad Gita. Mahabhutani ahankaro buddhirapyaktameva cha indriyani dashaikam cha pancha chendriya gocharaha. Ichhadvesha sukham dukham sanghatas chetanadhriti etat kshetram samasena savikaram udahratam. We notice some of the same words used in Krishna's words here as is in this verse of Bhagavatam. What does it mean? The 5 great elements, false ego, intelligence, the unmanifested, the 10 senses and the mind, the 5 sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, the life symptoms and convictions, all these are considered in summary to be the field of activities and its interaction. So taking the word to mean body would be repetitious, according to, this is Jiva Goswami's commentary. So he doesn't understand kshetra as the body per se, but he understands kshetra as the field of activities which we've just defined from Bhagavad Gita. Jiva here refers to the jiva, that is to say, the individual living entity. Jiva Goswami refers to the living entity with upadis, and that means we have our body, we have our mind. We have basically all the things that are mentioned in this verse. This is the Lord's Maya. All of these are the play of your external energy, Twan Maya. I take shelter of you since I'm covered by that Maya. This is Jiva Goswami's paraphrase. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, for his part, says that Shiva Dwara had elaborated, that's in the previous text, on Krishna being pure, concentrated spiritual consciousness, sarvatmanam kevalam yepti matram. First, the objects excluded by the word only, kevalam, are enumerated. Time is the agitator. Action is the immediate subtle cause. And that which brings about the visible results is called destiny. This is Purva Mimamsa philosophy, described in Purva Mimamsa philosophy. Daivam, or adrishtam, the unseen thing. We plant a seed in the form of our actions, but we cannot see that seed. It's underground, and we can't perceive how it's going to fructify, what its effects will be. But that's all there, and it's called daivam, fate. And then sometime in the future, when that seed has fructified and produced some flower or fruit, then we experience the result in the form of happiness and distress, the things that Krishna has mentioned here in his discussion of the kshetra. This is our conditional existence. So, propensities or swabhava are the subtle traces or samskara of karma. Samskara. Samskara means an impression, like when we print books in Hindi. Prathama samskarana, dvitiya samskarana, etc. First impression, second printing, second edition, you can say in English. So samskara means the impressions. Every action leaves its impression on the psychology of the jiva, and he carries that with him in the subtle body. That's called linga here. Mind, intelligence, and false ego, they're all impressed by our previous actions, and they carry the results, invisible results, adrishta, daivam, and that is what affects our destiny. This carries one from one body to another. Krishna says elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita that the foolish can't see how this is all taking place. But those whose eyes are trained in knowledge by practicing Krishna consciousness, they see everything very clearly. So it's like the flower has its scent. The scent is not directly connected to the flower, but we perceive it. And it's not separable from the flower either. So this is how we're being moved about in Maya by the Lord's material energy, who impels us to act on the basis of our own samskars. And we plant seeds one after another. And when those seeds fructify, we experience things. We have no explanation for that experience. We can't understand the process. So the jiva is the individual living entity who possesses this karma. Dravyam refers to the subtle forms of the elements, bhuta sukshmas tanmatras. Kshetram is the body or matter. You can take it either way, as we've discussed already. Somebody takes it to be the body, as Krishna does in Bhagavad Gita. Someone else takes it to be prakriti, as Jiva Goswami has already described here. But this is kshetram. Prana is the life air, and it's described here again by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur as sutra. Sutra because there's a common denominator running through all of our experience and all of our existence, and that is the prana that keeps everything together, connected together, like pearls are strung on a thread. Sutram maniganaiva. Atma is the false ego, ahankara, and vikara, or transformation, is 16-fold, comprising the 11 senses and the 5 gross elements. What are the 5 gross elements? Earth, water, fire, air, ether. So that combined with the 11 senses, knowledge acquiring senses and active senses, the totality of these is reflected in the living being's subtle body, his linga deha. Action generated from the body, or bija, produces another body, roha. We talked about the plant, or the seed and the plant. What was the word in the translation? Seed and plant. So we said already that performing any activity is like planting a seed. And then when you experience the result or the fruition of that activity, that's like the plant. So the continuous flow is your maya. Planting seeds, reaping results. Planting seeds, reaping results. They're always going on, and they're often overlapping also. This is our experience. This is what dictates our experience in this world. Where our life goes, what we experience, how we process it, all these things are determined by this field of activities, and this is the Lord's external energy, Maya. Although the living entity is different from Maya because of being controlled by Maya, he's enamored by it. In summary, the phrase bijaroha pravaha means that the conditioned soul accepts the material body in order to enjoy the material world. This also Krishna says in the same passage of Bhagavad Gita that, what is that? Shariram yadavapnoti achapyutkramatishvaraha grihita itana sanyati vayurgantani vashayata. We all carry our conceptions of life as the air is carrying aromas, and we're taken through those conceptions from one body to another. This is the bija roha pravaha mentioned here. So the body is a seed, bija, of his future material existence, because when a person acts with the body, he creates further reactions, karma, which grow, roha, into the obligation to accept another material body. You can see how the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust purport is very closely paraphrasing what the acharyas have said. In fact, they've been explicitly quoted, Sridhar Swami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur at least. So here he's paraphrasing. In other words, material life is a chain of actions and reactions. Therefore, I take shelter of you, the limit of negation. Your body and senses, tan nishedham, are not different from your pure spiritual existence and are not Maya. This is the point. So Bhanu Swami has also translated this verse. He says, time, fate, karma, the jiva and its propensities, the subtle material elements, the material body, the life, air, false ego, the various senses, the totality of these, as reflected in the living being's subtle body, all this constitutes your material illusory energy maya, an endless cycle like that of seed and plant. I take shelter of you, the negation of this maya. So Shivajwara is getting exhausted, as we know. He's come on as a loyal, faithful servitor of Banasura, tried to defend his master. His master has already fled the battlefield when he saw his army being completely routed by that of Lord Krishna. Now Shivajwara has tried his best and he's been destroyed himself. So he's wisely surrendering unto the Lord. We should learn from his example. We cannot fight the Lord. We cannot hold out against the Lord forever in our determined effort to compete with him, to exploit his resources while evading his authority. This is a hopeless task. So Shivajwara has learned his lesson and he surrenders. Later we'll see that even Banasura himself also surrenders. Lord Shiva also surrenders. So they're all wise souls. This is just Leela. This whole thing is arranged by Yoga Maya, not Mahamaya. That's why it's important to distinguish the Lord here, as all the acharyas are doing, and as Shivajwara himself is doing, to distinguish the Lord from his Maya. In the last verse, that's text 25, we heard the Lord is glorified as pure spiritual existence. The term is used that text in front of me. Yes, exactly. Kevalam Yapti Matram. Nothing but pure awareness, actually, Yapti means. So this is the Lord, and he is not different from his body. That is a spiritual body, he says. In our liberated state, we're also not different from our body. We put a lot of emphasis on the fact that we are not the body in our sadhaka rupa, in our sadhaka dehas, our form of conditioned souls trying to be Krishna conscious. This is what we have to constantly remind ourselves of this. But in the spiritual world, actually, we are our bodies. What is that verse from Brahma Samhita about the 64 arts and the Lord's consorts who personify them? Anybody know what I'm thinking of? That's the whole idea there. In the spiritual world, you're not different from your devotional attitude. You are one and the same with that. And that's why it's true. it's absolutely true when Krishna says, Shraddha Mayo Yam Purushaha. Living entity is not different from his faith. In the spiritual world, you are your consciousness. But in this material world, we are not these material bodies. We're not all this Maya that is being described in today's verse. So the Lord is a negation of all of that. As long as we're clinging on to that Maya conception of selfhood, then we're going to be frustrated by the Lord because he's going to cut us down. And that's why he's called Nishedha Avadhibhutam. He has become, as it were, the very zenith of all prohibition. Very frustrating relationship. If you're trying to compete with the Lord, it's a very frustrating relationship to have to come to perceive him in this way. But if we surrender to the Lord, then the absolute truth remains, and we also remain in our pure form. We don't have to suffer anymore. So the purport says, the process of education may be succinctly described as a way of eradicating ignorance through the attainment of knowledge. So this is the whole idea. Shivajwara is not really, he's acting on behalf of Lord Shiva and Lord Krishna both. He's speaking enlightening words as he, in an exemplary way, surrenders unto the Lord. So we're supposed to take this instruction to heart, and we should do likewise. That's the purport here. All right, so this is a few things we can say about this. Anybody have any questions or any comments?
Really wonder, like, this question comes often, there is a disconnect between the action, the seed and the plant, the action and the reaction, in terms of time, in terms of body. And people ask, like, why Krishna has created the system in such a way that that disconnect is so heavy? Like, we don't know what was the seed that we are actually reaping the fruits from.
Yeah, so sometimes people ask, what's the point of going to hell if you don't remember why you went there? Right. That's the essence of your question. Well, it's a scientific process and it's a metaphysical process at the same time. As we mentioned, the samskara is there. And it's that samskar that carries us on and on and on and on and on. But that samskar can be changed. And it is changed by our activities. It is changed by our experiences. But ultimately, you cannot eradicate the existence of material samskar altogether until you take shelter of Krishna. So that's his method of rectifying the wayward jivas, whom he loves. It is only a process of love. So this is one way to look at it. Another thing is that because we're just tiny jivas, we're not omniscient, and we do have very limited consciousness by constitution, not by conditioning, by constitution. Kshetram ityabhiti, kshetra jnam chapi mam vidhi, sarva kshetreshu bharata ityadi. This is what Krishna also says in the same context as we've discussed. So Krishna knows everything, we don't know everything. That's another way you can look at it. These are two answers. I don't know, Maharaj, if you want to add something or
No.
Anyone else? Drishta Prabhu?
Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, they simplified things. Instead just to chant Hare Krishna. So how do we view that? That's sort of an optimistic message.
Yeah, it's encouraging.
Yeah. So how does that? We can fit in. We can see Shiva Dwara as like this is rather a sort of a pessimistic message, like you're crushing me, etc., etc. But Prabhupada gave us the optimistic message. So how do we, take the optimistic message, not forgetting the pessimistic message, because we don't want to become sentimentalists.
Well, that's kind of between each of us and Krishna, right? So as we're sincere, Krishna will reciprocate as need be. He will send the association that we require. Devotees have a lot to do with this. Devotees can inspire us, they can protect us, they can guide us, they can also chastise us. The God brother. This is a perennial category of association that we can have, and it's our greatest asset, and it's also our greatest challenge sometimes. So, yeah, they both have to be there. We have, there's no way to avoid. I mean, sometimes it's said there's no polite way to throw a hand grenade. So there's no easy way to become Krishna conscious without dismantling the false ego and all its accoutrements, as we're discussing in today's verse. So yeah, that's a part of Krishna consciousness also, and Anarjuna Vritti is vitally concerned with that. But at the same time, it is a very simple process. We don't really have to complicate things needlessly, but we should understand that until our devotional service is above all these mundane influences, then we're practicing probate bhakti, if you will, chaya bhakti, Bhaktivinoda Thakur calls it, or bhakti abhas. We're bhakti with training wheels, you can say. And yeah, I mean, we should not think that we're more advanced than we are. We should be chastened by these kinds of descriptions. So yeah, they're both necessary. Do you have any comment of your own on this?
It's just, I think that as far as the chastening goes, that's absolutely necessary for devotees who are already devotees. But when we go out and preach, we have to give the positive.
Very good point. Yeah, everything is dependent on one's personal adhikar. Krishna says, Swe adhikari anishta saguna parikirtata. To attempt something that you have the adhikar to do, that is the quality. And to attempt anything else is a flaw. So if you settle for less than you're actually capable of doing, that's a flaw. If you attempt more than you're actually capable of doing, that's also a flaw. It has to be right on the money. So that's why we have gurus. That's why we have association with devotees that can help us with that. Yeah, but in the beginning, as you said, Prabhupada is just encouraging, gulab jamans. That's our Krishna consciousness. And the entry-level Krishna consciousness at 22nd Avenue meant that big barrel of gulab jamans that Prabhupada worked hard to make all by himself, just for all these people. This is how he spent his time. That's a pure devotee, really shedding gallons of blood for the deliverance of even one person who takes maybe 20 years to even become a human being. And then he decides whether he wants to continue with Krishna consciousness or not. So it's not an easy thing to deliver a conditioned soul. And Srila Prabhupada was always encouraging, just like parents. Sometimes we see that parents, you have to discipline them when they're, say, 5 to 15 or so. You have to discipline a little bit strictly, but the love should always be just a little stronger than the discipline that a child should know. Then the encouragement is constant. And then they get the strength through the power of love, only love. They get the strength to overcome their anarthas, to mature as human beings. So we're just like that as struggling neophytes. We should understand that our spiritual master loves us, and in Srila Prabhupada's case, at least, it's very clear. We saw what he did for us. He didn't sleep, practically speaking, and all the things that he did. So, yeah, the love should be very prominent. And with conditioned souls, it should be the only thing that they feel in the beginning. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Prabhupada said he tricked us, because at some point you eventually recognize, hey, there's a lot of work for me to do here also. And, these are the stats that Krishna gives in Bhagavad Gita, that, 1 out of a million practically will continue with it. Because when people recognize there's nothing that they're going to gain for their karma and gyan, they get discouraged and go away. We don't want that to happen. Okay, so we'll stop here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Nice glass. Stimulate. Goloka.
Sri Nandana Bhagavan
Oh my, just worship, love the spirit. Take a drop of water, let it spread. Offering praise, serve the Holy Spirit, become the servant, worship Him. Offering praise, serve the Holy Spirit, become the servant, worship Him. Serve Him. Years, and exchanged the Bible and the life, and raised it from the dead. This made the because the spread the it is like all of this. It increased the yoke and it enabled us to fully take exactly Oh, my Lord, congregation, church of the holy name of and bring the offering additions to living beings. And thus having the beings of the life. In these transcendental names, that best all the things and hard and fast in these names. Oh, my Lord, God of kindness, you enable us to easily approach by your holy names. But I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction to them. 1 to 10, the holy name of the Lord, and the state of mind. Thinking oneself, Lord, the star of the street. One to be more tolerant than the repeated one boy of all sins, the false proceed, and to be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, and the Lord constantly. Oh, my God. I'm going to thank you for your Lord, that Lord, my women is number of followers. I only want God to go to the servant's birth and the birth. Oh, so that's what I yet it's not following the ocean of birth or death. Picking out of this ocean of death, and it's least the atoms, the pure blows can be. Oh, my Lord, when we may I think together to use of God, going constantly with the king, your own name. When will my body shall come, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end for the saving? Oh, in the separation. I am considered to all like 12 years more. Here are all I don't know about Krishna and the Lord is so even but praise only for me. He seems to completely in everything for there's always welcome Mukunda and his wife for visiting us and